Well, hey guys, today we're just over the Tennessee state line to see if we can find what is left of some of the establishments that were ran by what we call the state line mob. I'm going to read you part of what that sign says as we walk back toward Mississippi and the site of the Shamrock Motel. Since the 1930s, the state line was known for illegal drugs, bootleg whiskey, gambling, and prostitution. Death and bloodshed and illegal activities continued through the 1960s. The concrete foundation of the Shamrock Motel and Restaurant are all that remain today. Well, we're going to look at and walk around on that concrete foundation and see if we can identify the lobby and, room number 1, Louise Hathcock's room, because, so much state line history, it seems like, played out in that room. Now, the Shamrock Motel was kind of a big place, certainly for the state line, and I believe we are now walking beside that far end of the hotel that you see in the picture. The original State Line Club was owned by a guy named Nelson Timlake. Jack was sort of his protege, and he treated him like a son. Jack's dad had probably run moonshine for Mr. Timlake, and I believe that's how they met. Louise Anderson was around 18 years old when she first started working at the State Line Club. This club was located in the same spot right here at the state line. Men would regularly, come on to her and try to get her attention, so she really noticed when one didn't pay her any attention at all. This young guy's name was Jack Hathcock. Jack had landed at the State Line Club after doing a 1-year stint for robbery at a place called the Reformatory. The State Line Club became the 45 Grill, which became the Shamrock, which sat right about there. I believe you're looking at the spot where the sign for the old Shamrock was located. If that's right, then the restaurant would have been right across the highway now. We're going to explore what's left in just a sec while I tell you some of the rest of the site's story. Let's talk a little bit more about Jack. He wouldn't ever hardly instigate a confrontation, but if he felt wronged, he would even the score. You are now walking into where I believe the lobby of the Shamrock was located. Once inside the lobby of the Shamrock, you would have seen the reception desk to your right, and in a little alcove sort of thing, you would have seen a TV and couch and chairs and a little kitchenette for Louise and the other workers to lounge around in, and then you would have noticed a little short hallway in cabin number 1, which of course was Louise's room. As you can tell, in present day, the vegetation is so thick that I'm not going to be able to stand on a spot and say this was Louise Hathcock's room. But undoubtedly, I'll carry you through the area as we tell the story. Now, Jack and Louise got married in October of 1937. Jack and Louise had many ups and downs here at the state line over the next 10 or 12 years, but one night in January of 1949, Mr. Timlake had them over for dinner. For some reason, he had decided to move on from the area, and at the end of the night, Jack had controlling interest in the State Line Club, Foam City, and the Rainbow Room. Not too very long after this, Jack made another one of Louise's dreams come true. He bought them this home that you see right now in Corinth. The home has had a tree fall on it during recent storms. This video was made in October of 2023. And just after that, Jack and Louise adopted her niece. Her brother's wife had just passed away, and he couldn't really take care of Susan, so Susan became the daughter of Jack and Louise Hathcock. The state line was burned down in Christmas of 1949, probably by one of their competitors. The 45 Grill was built back in its spot, and Jack put Louise in charge of that. This area you're walking in was packed with customers most every night, and Jack and Louise made lots of money. Sometime around 1953, a guy named Towhead White began to work at the state line. We talked about him some in an earlier video. Things were going well for Jack and Louise here, but she began to become jealous of Jack's relationship with their daughter Susan. One thing led to another, and she began an affair with one of their workers named Pee Wee Walker. Over time, Pee Wee and Louise basically began to flaunt their affair. Pee Wee seemed to enjoy the power the affair gave him, and Louise fell head over heels for Pee Wee. There are many other avenues this story can take, but to keep this video short, I just need you to know that the 45 grill was burned to the ground on December the 19th, 1956. And in place of the 45 grill, Jack built back the Shamrock Motel, whose foundation you're walking around on now. Pee Wee and Louise were still conducting their affair, but on the morning of June the 13th, 1957, Pee Wee got in the car with 4 other men outside of a grocery store in Corinth. They were supposedly needing his help to pick up a load of abandoned whiskey. Instead, they took him to a field outside of town where they beat him pretty badly, and one of the men shot him in the back of the head. Of course, this left Louise heartbroken and terribly angry at Jack. She didn't know for sure if Jack ordered the hit or not, but nonetheless, she blamed him for it. Louise became terribly volatile after Pee Wee's death. But life rocked on at the state line, and in February of 1964, their daughter Susan ran off with her boyfriend Raymond Jones and got married. Louise had the marriage annulled, but shortly thereafter, Susan got pregnant. In April, Susan and Ray got married. I've read some accounts that say it was a conspiracy between Louise and some of the other state line folks, and then there were some that say it was just a fight between Jack and Louise. But nonetheless, on the night of May 22nd, 1964, Jack Hathcock stepped into the room number 1, which we walked through just a second ago, and was shot. Now, he was either shot by one of the conspirators mentioned a minute ago or shot by Louise. Jack ran through the hotel lobby and was making his way back toward the cafe, which you're looking at now, where he had a room. At least that's what I think he was doing. And somewhere in the area you're looking, he fell dead. It was said that his body fell directly on top of the state line, but they decided to let McNairy County have the case because the shooting happened there. Louise, of course, had a bruised and swollen face, but she told the sheriff, who reportedly she also had a relationship with, that Jack tried to rape her and then beat her up. She claimed she had to kill him. Of course, another famous shooting happened in room number 1 some 21 months later. Sheriff Buford Pusser shot and killed Louise Hathcock while attempting to serve a couple of search warrants. We covered that story pretty extensively in our video on Louise Hathcock, so you can catch it there. Another state line story that included Buford Pusser happened just up the highway in Mississippi at a place called the Plantation Club. The Plantation Club was owned by Jack's nephew, W.O. Hathcock, and set right about there. The Plantation Club was called, I believe, the Lucky Spot in the movie Walking Tall. You know, this was a spot where Buford and his friend came into one night and were drinking and carrying on when Buford noticed some cheating by the Plantation Club staff. Of course, a fight ensued and Buford was beat up and thrown out the door, and in the movie he was cut up really badly and sent to the hospital. In the movie he came right back out of the hospital and beat up everybody at the plantation. Well, in the movie they called it the Lucky Spot, and he took back the money that he says was taken from him when the Plantation Club people beat him up. Now, he was arrested and went to trial, but all that happened in Corinth because where the Plantation Club is located in Mississippi. Now, in the movie, it was portrayed as being in McNairy County. Of course, this story is like all the other state line stories, and the facts get kind of mixed up, well, depending on who you talk to. We know Buford was beat up and thrown out of the Plantation Club. We know he returned sometime later, either by himself or with friends, depending on who you ask, and the owner of the club was beaten up, and Buford stole his money back. And then the trial happened in Corinth. I almost forgot to tell you, Buford was found not guilty. Well, they used some other legal term, but essentially all the charges against him were dropped. And folks, if you believe I got any of these facts wrong, please correct me in the comments. And it would be even better if you left us a link to some documentation supporting your version of the story. Nonetheless, I hope you learned a little bit about life at the state line today, and I hope you enjoyed looking around the property where these places once stood. Thank you.